Welcome, everybody. It's another Wednesday night at 8 p.m. You are on the Relationship Gumbo Podcast Live edition. We have a special guest tonight in a topic that I think a lot of you are going to be able to relate to. A public success while struggling privately. I think a lot of us have been there, and if you haven't, you know someone who has. So what I'm going to do is, as you come in, make sure you share and invite this with all your friends and family. And I am going to take about 30 seconds to check and make sure everything's running. So let me know that you're here. Let me know where you're from. And please share and invite. I'll be right back.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true, I know. Derek Jones about to break it down with the Relationship Gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, ayy, cause better relationships need better ingredients, ayy. So if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah. Derek Jones the host, your relationship coach. Thank you all for tuning in. Relationship Gumbo, ayy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome again. If you're just coming in, make sure you share and invite. This is the Relationship Gumbo Podcast. And what we do here, this is a live podcast recording. So you're going to get to be a fly on the wall. Feel free to comment. And if the comment is pertinent to the discussion, I may add it in. And what I normally do is I will pause for 3 seconds. I'll intro the podcast. And at the end, I'll pause for another 3 seconds. And then we can speak freely. So what I want to do is I want to first show you where to get the podcast. So hold on 1 second. So you guys can follow the audio. You can listen to it in your car, or you can come back where you are now and look at the video again. So Relationship Gumbo Podcast, you can get it anywhere that you can get, a podcast. So you can search for Relationship Gumbo and it'll pop right up. You can even go on Alexa and ask for the podcast. It'll come up. So I took a long time to figure out how to do all of that. So it's there. So we're going to get right into it. Like I said, I'm going to pause for 3 seconds and we're going to get started. So stand by. And welcome to another episode of the Relationship Gumbo Podcast. My name is Derek Jones and I am your host. I'm a life coach, an engineer, a strategist, and a mental health advocate. And tonight we are going to talk about being a public success while struggling privately. And we have an extra special guest that's going to help me out with this topic. She's someone that I met in a podcast group, mind you. And I'm all about connecting with people. I think that's what we're here for on this earth. And I liked her energy on there. She was excited about her podcast. And I was like, let's get her on the show. And we about to pick her brain tonight. So I'm going to let her up and I'm going to let her introduce herself because she can do it way better than I can. So hold on 1 second. Let me unmute her and put her up here. There she is, Miss Amber Carter. How are you?
Hey everyone, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me today, Derek. I'm excited.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and we're going to get right into it.
So I am a licensed real estate agent in Kentucky, soon to be Ohio as well. I am stepping into a new lane. So I will be launching my first podcast here in the next few weeks, and we can definitely get into that a little bit later. Not very exciting person. That's really about me. I have a little one. I have a 5-year-old. Definitely excited to touch base with you all on being a public success while struggling in private and see what you all think.
Cool. What an introduction. I like that one. So what we're going to do, I broke this down into 4 different categories so that we can kind of stay on task. You guys know I like to do things in order. So the first topic under this is going to be called I'm addicted to success, right? And the reason why I named it that is because there's a lot of people who find a little bit of success or a lot of success, and it feels so good to feel how other people perceive you. The money feels good. And what I've seen in my travels is there's a lot of people who get it, and then like maybe they don't. And then they kind of go through it like a drug addict, like they need it. Have you ever experienced that or know someone that has been there? Or it might be you.
Man, it's definitely real. I would say it is pretty much like an addiction. It's real. I would say just for myself, personally speaking, I've been in management roles since I was in my teens. So teens, early 20s, I've been in management roles. And it's nice to see that transition. It's nice to see when I first achieved my management role, how I was so much about getting things done, or, so much about that's my life. I have to make sure that I'm at the job or doing something for work 24/7 because that's all I know. But as I started to grow and started to understand, there's so much more to life. And, once you're able to be comfortable with yourself, you don't always have to be on the clock 24/7. And then also you'll start to learn, and you'll understand that I need to do what I need to do within this time frame. If it's not done within this time frame, unless it's an emergency, it can wait until the next day. But I think a lot of people, especially when they do get into whether it's a financial high that they are, wanting to achieve, or maybe it's just a specific title that they're wanting to achieve, and they get on that high where they're like, this is something that I've been working for, and something that maybe it may be a generational thing. It may be even related to education. You just have to stay true to yourself, because you can lose yourself in people, the way people view you, or if people see that you are being successful, or feel that you're in a successful environment or situation.
Yeah. And with you saying that, what I think about too is the images that we see on social media of success, or a fake success, right? We think that they're successful, and then a lot of us look at that and we want to be that, and we're going to claw and scratch and try to be that, and we don't realize that it might not be that pretty.
That's why we love social media, right?
Yeah, social media it's a gift and a curse. There's a lot of false, I guess I'll say it. There's a lot of false prophets out there.
Yeah.
There's people out here pretending, and being an entrepreneur and being success is like this sexy thing to be now. Like, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and people don't realize that there's a lot that comes along with that. There's a lot that you're going to have to put into it, and there's some sacrifices you're going to have to make to get that success. And so what I want to do is I want to segue into number 2 here, which is the struggle behind the curtain. Because a lot of times when people get that high of success and the world sees them, and you get high off of the adulation, and people are like, oh my God, look at them. Oh, look at what they're driving. Oh my God, and you're like, yes, that's me. And then in some cases, a lot of these people tend to be a little narcissistic, and they need the attention. And behind the scenes, we don't see what they've sacrificed, right? And I want you to talk about maybe some sacrifices you've made in order for you to kind of get what you want, and what that kind of looked like for you. We're going to talk about the other side of it, but while you were in it, like what I want to phrase this right. What kind of struggles did you have, or didn't have, or have you seen? It may not have to be about you, but things you've seen people go through that struggle, but it looked pretty. Like, they might be driving a Range Rover, but you saw them, doing something on the side that didn't look so good.
I don't think that I know anyone that has been successful or even achieved a milestone without going through some type of pain or struggle. I would say that it's just not realistic to not have those struggles. That's what life is all about. Just for me personally, I like today was crazy. It's just the little things that you realize sometimes you don't have control over what's happening in your life, or you don't have control over people. You don't have control over anyone but yourself and the way that you react to situations. I know for myself personally, these last few months, it's definitely been difficult. I was in a relationship for going on 8 years now, and we actually recently ended our relationship. We were actually engaged for about 1.5 years, and that's something that I had not discussed with many people other than my family. A majority of people don't. They don't even know that. But those are some of, yeah, I know, right? So those are some of the, the struggles that people deal with, especially when you do have a family, and you have to understand that in a relationship, it has to be give and take. And sometimes you have to realize that you outgrow certain situations, or you may be going in a different direction. The nice thing about social media is that you can manipulate it to be what you want it to be. And that's the beauty of social media. And not to say that when those negative things happen, that you're still not happy.
Yeah.
I know even with, I would say with everything going on, 2020 has actually been, it's been a great year because I've been able to make decisions without any regrets. Some of those decisions that people, that are the unpopular decisions, I've been able to make those and not look back and say, this is, I'm making this decision. Yeah. I don't have to give a reason why I'm making that decision. It's what's best for me. So, definitely social media, it allows you to manipulate what's going on, but anybody that is successful or that, achieved anything, they're going through something, or they've been through something.
So I have a question about what you just said, but I'm gonna leave with this. The wheels are always spinning. So the other part of this, like we talked about success in like being an entrepreneur and work or whatever, but just from what you led into with your relationship, that's the other thing too about being a public success is your relationship. A lot of people need their relationship to be publicly like perfect. And we all know that behind the scenes, it's a lot of people going through struggles. And, there were some parts of my life where I had to fake it too. Like I had to pretend like it was good. And then when I got home, it was like, long time. I had lessons learned long time ago. And I was like, that's not cool. Like you're living miserable every day. And when you leave out and you go to your parents' house with your significant other and you're like, hey, everything's fine. Now the question to you, during that relationship, did you feel pressure to make it look pretty?
I don't think there was any pressure, but I think everyone has their expectations of what a relationship should look like. I know specifically there were some things that, when you do go to these formal events, or you do have, these get-togethers with your colleagues and you're all out, you want your spouse to be there. And sometimes that's not what they want to do. And I think just within a relationship, you have to understand what you will bend on, what you will accept, or, what's your non-negotiables. The nice thing is that I don't ever feel pressured to do anything, especially when it comes to my relationship, because I know that anyone on the outside, they don't have to deal with what's going on. And I would say specifically when it came to different events that we wanted to go to, we have to understand that we have our own rights of what we like to do. There's some events that he may not be interested in, or there's some events that I may not be interested in. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't mean that we're having any issues, but we just have to realize what we will allow in a relationship and what we will not allow or tolerate.
I got you. So y'all didn't have pressures to be the power couple in a relationship goals? None of that?
Everyone, I would say now that I think about it,
before you say that, a lot of times people don't necessarily want to be the power couple.
Yeah.
But people will say, they're a power couple. And you're like, wait, hold on. You don't know it's like that.
Yeah. And I think especially for me, we didn't do like the whole Facebook arguing and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of people they would think, or they would be under the impression that everything is perfectly fine. And even to this day, we're fine. Like we communicate, but people I will always say a relationship, don't be like someone else's relationship. I don't want to be the power couple for you. Like, I don't want you to hold me to that standard because I know that our relationship is not perfect. And someone that, that acts or feels as if their relationship is perfect, there's some issues in that relationship, right?
I say that all the time.
Right?
I say that all the time because people don't realize that a lot of times your relationship isn't in a bubble. Your personality and who you are isn't in a bubble. So like a lot of times I'll see these people, I'm like, wait, I know y'all. That I see them on Facebook, I'm like, wait, no, that's not, come on. Y'all don't need to do that. That's a little extra. Nobody really needs to know or see, that you just got a pair of red bottoms because it was a Wednesday and you want everybody to be like, oh my God, I wish I had your relationship. Stop it. Like, and so... So to bring this particular segment home, the struggles that people have, whether it's, publicly you're successful in business or publicly you feel like you're successful and your relationship is successful and you want to show it off. The key here and the goal here is happy. If you're happy, then everything else just kind of follows suit. If you're miserable at home and you give the appearance to be happy and it's phony outside, then it's almost like you in jail because you got to, it's just like a lie. You got to keep going over and over again. And the longer you go, the more miserable you become. The goal should always be happy or happier or happiest or whatever you want to call it. If you don't have that, that should be your goal. Not the other way around. Like, oh, we're miserable. There's some domestic violence in the house, but we're going to go play happy couple. That's not healthy. And then that segues into number 3. How it affects the struggle and the phoniness and the wearing the mask, how that affects your families and your relationships. And a lot of times there's negative effects that we don't see, especially with the little ones, right? We have kids, we have family members, we have significant others, and our thirst for that success sometimes has an adverse effect on the people that are watching us at home. Do you have any perspective on that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really funny is that, if there's something that's going on in your relationship that, you may not want to discuss with anyone else, it's always funny when you have to go around family and you still have to, put on that family atmosphere with your significant other and with your child. Children are very smart. Yes. We do have a 5-year-old, and when things were going on that he may not understand, as adults, the good thing about it is that we understand that we have to communicate, and there are some things or some actions that we can't do because our son is watching us. And it's very hard because when you are in a relationship, you do have those candid moments. You definitely have those moments where you want to lash out or you want to, scream because you're just so annoyed with what's going on. So I definitely think that, with being in specific positions, having children, you always have to have a balance. And you discuss that really the important thing is to be happy. You have to understand what your happiness is as well. Yeah. There's relationships or those times where everything's perfectly fine. You're not arguing, you're all on the same schedule. Mm-hmm. You know what you're going to eat for the night. So everything is good, but you're just not happy. And you have to realize, and I think it's selfish if you continue to sit in a situation and you don't communicate with your spouse and say, something just does not feel right. I don't feel like myself. I know everything is going well, but my happiness is not there. So you have to figure out what that is.
Yeah, I did a podcast one of my earlier podcasts was called "Don't Let Your Schedule Define Your Relationship," because we get in maintenance mode sometimes.
Yeah.
And underneath that, sometimes there's a lot of dysfunction and a lot of unhappy times and unhappy moments. And just being to piggyback off of what you were talking about, just being self-aware, being aware of who you are, what you need. And if it doesn't mean you have to leave a situation, it just means that it probably needs some nurturing. It maybe some dialogue needs to happen in order for you to make things kind of fit. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of us live in a situation where it's through work or through relationships where the communication just isn't, you know, where it's supposed to be. And then we got to, like I keep saying, we got to pretend, we got to put a mask on and make sure everybody knows that we're good. I'm good. I'm all right. And I'm like, no, you're not. You don't have, when you keep telling yourself that lie, that unhappiness just stays, it's like it's stagnant and it just stays there. And at the end of that rainbow is you're probably gonna blow up one day, or your significant other's gonna be like all of a sudden you just seem angry. No.
It's been going on, right?
It was headed that way anyway. So yeah, I just want to reiterate the point as we go on to the next topic is like we talked about social media, and somebody just said in the comments, Alexis from Facebook says it builds anxiety and stress. That's a real statement right there. We didn't even touch on mental health for real.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
The addiction to having to have that perfect view is something that more people, like I was saying, with the advent of the social media and all of that, it's like that anxiety and that stress and the having to be, you know, look a certain way and do all that brings to mind that term, fake it till you make it.
Right.
Which has its pros and cons depending on where you are. But, you know, I did that like when I was doing network marketing a long time ago, and you get the little photo shoot and you put the picture up and it looks like you, and you're like, yeah, join me. And I'm like, well, we didn't make $1.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think a lot of people, especially when they feel as if they're in this role where maybe, you know, the people that they are interacting with, they all have spouses, or, you know, they're bringing them to these different events and they don't want to be the only one that, you know, is by themselves, you know, like the fifth wheel. Yep. So I definitely think that there is pressure to be in some type of relationship in some sort of capacity. And, you know, that was a good point for anxiety and, you know, your mental health. Some people will disregard what they feel just so that they can paint that pretty picture, just so that they can post those pictures on Facebook, and not, you know, and to be honest, there was a point where I would have rather have this perfect picture than to actually realize how I was feeling in a situation.
There it is.
Because you start to think, you say, well, you know, is it really this bad? You know, or is it, you know, is there stuff that we can work on, or give it a little bit of time? And you say that one day and then it's years later and you're in the same situation. So you have to realize what you want. You have to realize what your happiness is. And, you know, like you can manipulate Facebook all you want, but how are you going to feel at night when you're not happy?
Yeah. And the unfortunate truth about that is that unhappiness becomes such a part of your life that you start to believe that's what you deserve.
Yeah.
Isn't that suck? Right? I think a lot of us have been there, and we've sat longer than we probably should have, whether it be a job, whether it be a relationship. And we're like, you know what? I mean, I tried to make it work. It's not working, but I don't know where else to be. I don't know where else I fit. Let me just, you know, pretend that I'm good. And that's just a life lesson. Forget the whole power struggle, public success. Like that sitting in that misery doesn't serve your soul, doesn't serve whatever you're supposed to be here on this earth to do. And it's tough. It's tough to ride that fence
Yep.
of, crying at home, but then you got to go outside and smile.
Yeah. When you say it aloud, it sounds crazy,
Yeah.
but people live it. We live it. And I think, on a woman aspect, you think about what the traditional stereotype of what it looks like to have this family. You have your kid, you have your spouse, you have your cars, your house, jobs. What more do you want? And maybe some people would think that you're selfish because with being blessed with all of that you shouldn't want for more.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you're happy. And I think that's why a lot of women, they do feel like they have to stay in relationships. And then too, there are some women that they may not, their success or their power comes from being the mother of the house and being the nurturer and not having to go out and actually be the provider, so that when they're not happy or when there's a situation where they feel like as if they know that they should probably leave, but they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother situation in itself.
Yeah. It's a lot. And I know, I don't ever want to trivialize like all of this that we're talking about, because I know there's some people that's really suffering behind the scenes and struggling to just smile every day. And it's tough. But those of us who like, there's people listening right now, for a fact that you need to go ahead and do that gut check and say, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? And it's just a slight mental, shift that you have to make in order for you to go from, struggle, miserable, woe is me, to the smile that I have outside the door. It's the same smile I have in the house. I'm happy. I'm mindful of what I have. I may have some things to work on, but internally I'm in a happy place. And so we're going to go into number 4, which is, how do you manage it? How do you, like, especially with work, entrepreneurs, how do you manage the success and your personal and your family life and try to kind of give everybody what they need? Because there's a lot of people out here that are successful and it's like, team no sleep, and I don't ever sleep. I sleep for 30 seconds every night. And I'm like, you have 3 kids. Stop.
Yeah, I'm like, I just need a few hours of sleep a day and I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I think, every day you kind of realize what you need to do or what you can change. I think what would be the most important way to manage is that you have to understand. You have to understand what's on your plate. You have to understand what your family needs. And I think for me, as I, became more confident in my role and was able to make those decisions that, yes, work is important, but I still do have a family. If my family needs me, unless it's in a dire need emergency at work, I'm going to make sure that they come first.
Yeah. So
I think just, making that agreement is that if my family needs me, that I'm going to be there. But it's very tough, especially there was one point I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and not getting home until, like 9 or 10 o'clock.
Wow. That's a long day.
It's literally a full day. And then having to go to sleep, some days it really hurts because when I got home, my son was asleep. Yeah. I didn't see him all day.
Yep.
So when I saw that first, it made me realize that there's no amount of money that's going to be more important than me not being able to spend time with my son, or to come home and my son's been at school. He's, been playing after school, and I get home, he's already ate and, had his bath, and now he's asleep. And I didn't get to talk to him, get to say anything. It's not that important. I feel like no job is that important. No amount of money is that important. So just understanding where your priorities are. For me, my family's always going to come first. Yeah. But you have to, on a spouse level, you have to understand and make sure that your spouse reciprocates that as well. So if I'm out here working and grinding and out all day, I don't want to come home to a messy house.
Yeah.
I don't want to come home and have to figure out what I got to eat.
Guilty as charged.
I think there has to be, there definitely has to be, you have to reciprocate what's happening. And I feel like in relationships that every person, you may have your season and then it may be your spouse's season. So you have to understand and you have to work together. There's not a specific formula that you use every day because it does change, but you have to understand what are your priorities. So I know no matter how my day goes, my family's going to be first and we're going to do what we need to do. So
yeah, you definitely have to, you really have to be intentional about what you're willing to do to keep things going. Cause I found myself, that's why I said guilty as charged. I found myself being that person that, you build a false equivalency sometimes. Like you're like, you could be at home or you could be working in your significant other, especially I've talked about this before, but men and women, like we have to realize that you guys are working just as hard as we are now. Because the expectation is you're going to be the nurturer and you're going to do the meals and you're going to clean up. And then we're sitting at home like, and it's like, no, I worked 40 hours too. I had to get that punch in the chest a couple of times. Like, hold on, you don't get to sit down.
And I still think, even in 2020, I don't think men fully understand that concept. I don't think some men may not ever be okay with that. And that's what I think, especially for someone like me. I honestly don't think in my career that I'm ever going to be satisfied, because once I know I can meet that mark of achieving one goal, there's another one that's right behind it. Right. So, just understanding that, I'm going to be working. We'll set those boundaries and we can discuss, but don't ever expect me to rely on you. Don't ever expect me to, and when I say rely on you, is that whatever you do, I can do that as well in the workforce. So we're both out here working, like you said, 40 hours a week. So when we both come home, how does that make it on me to have to cook, clean, do the dishes? So, let's come to a common agreement of, what will happen and how we will work this out, because we're both tired.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And also the point I wanted to make too about how you manage it is whatever your schedule is that allows you that you feel like you don't have time for the things that you really love and care about. Yeah. I'm a proponent of there's always a way, right? There's something that you overlooked where you can kind of skew something one way or another. And now that we're in this quarantine, I guarantee you 99% of people have found ways around being outside the house and not being home to do what you need to do. There's some virtual things you can do now. And you're like, oh, like you're a real estate agent. You can say, well, I did used to go to my clients and make them sign, but now we can do it virtually. Like we always had this. I just never used it. Exactly. You can now measure your time against what you can and can't do outside the house. And this, like, people are like, oh my gosh, I'm at home and I'm going crazy. And I don't know. You need to figure out how to manage that schedule. This is the time right now to figure out some things that you can do to kind of, and some people may need to go back to work and say, hey, boss, you know what? We've been working virtually for 2 months. Can I just come in for 3 days now instead of 5? Right. Like now we're in a position where, and if enough people say that, the money might make sense for them to, they're leasing out a building and all of that. Like it's 2020.
Absolutely.
I know it's a lot of, old regimes, but come on.
And I'm a firm believer. You always make time for what you want, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No matter what you have going on in your life, if you want to talk to someone or if you want to spend time with someone, you will always make time for it. It may not be, you know, an exact date, but you will make time for it. And I definitely think that's a really good point. A lot of people may not like that now because we know that you do have time. We know that you can make some time, right?
Yeah.
So I think that people have to realize too that it is important to spend time with your family. You know, it's not all about work. We understand people do have to work, but money will come. Your family's not always going to be there. You know, money's always going to come. But yeah, just, you know, taking in those initiatives to do something. Don't always wait, you know, go out, get some fresh air.
Yeah. Yeah. It's these schedules that we're slaves to sometimes. And sometimes it's not even about success. It's just about making ends meet. Yeah. But even in that, you know, it's people living check to check and still trying to make it look pretty and all of that. And I get it. But there's like you said, you make time for what you want. There's always a way. You just got to sit down and look at what you're doing and see where you can make those tweaks. It may not be what you want, but it's the first step. And normally when you make the first step to try to carve out some time and you stick by that, then later on, you're going to find some time to make even more space once you start figuring out a rhythm to get into. So, it's just to kind of wrap this up in a pretty bow, and then I'm going to let you say some final comments. But people that are listening, I see you guys on here. Let me see if there's any comments that I need to address. Alexis Green from Facebook says this pandemic has been a gut check for all. That's true. We definitely, through this topic about public success, struggling in private, you definitely have the opportunity to make some real change, to sit down for a change and actually think about how you're going to, what it's going to look like on the other side of this. Because that's coming, whether people think so or not. It's going to come to a point where you're going to be back out and you're going to try to resume that schedule that didn't allow you to do anything before. Now is the time for you to think about what that looks like. Alexis from Facebook says the hustle and bustle mentality that we as Americans have and can break us. So yeah, that hustle, that there's a guy that I follow on Facebook. He always says, don't let your hustle be your brand. Like that's all you are. It's just all hustle. And the work that you're doing, the people you're helping, it's not on the forefront. It's always about how hard you're working. And it's people that literally die from the stress of feeling like you got to hustle 24/7. Maybe the 20-year-old me might have been like, yeah, I can do that, but I can't. I need my sleep. I cannot. I see these people in our society, like we see these people that are hoisted up you see P. Diddy and Jay-Z, and you're like, oh, I want to be. They didn't do it by themselves.
Right.
People don't realize they didn't do it alone. You may see them by themselves, but they didn't get there alone. We need to. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. That's why the people in the comments, I try to engage them because we can help each other. Like the time that you need may come from you outsourcing something that you've been spending that time on, and that price that you would pay for that is worth the time that you're going to have with your kid or your husband or whoever it is. It's people out here with talent, and they sitting here on the screen watching. It's you and I talked about you doing the show and how to get that done because it's a wealth of information. We have the internet now. Like people don't realize we can do stuff and don't even have to be in each other's face. We can do stuff and go on YouTube and learn how to do something and next week come out and make some money and you're at home.
And P. Diddy was on Instagram yelling about he pays people so he doesn't have to do it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. People don't, we like to see, like we're so celebrity struck, and this ties into this whole thing about being a public success. I always tell people, when you see these rich people that you deem successful, and then that same person commits suicide, 2 years later, and you're like, what happened? And I'm like, you don't know what's going on in here. All you see is the money. Like, most people have something that they're struggling with at home that they're trying to figure out how to do better. Everybody's human. It's how you manage that, what's going on in here, which makes the difference between you really having a fruitful life and not. And that doesn't necessarily have a dollar amount attached to it. So I always tell people, and they're like, oh, I want to be like Jay-Z. And I'm like, whoa. You don't know that. You don't know what goes on at Jay-Z's house.
Right? Do you want those, what he has to deal with on a daily?
Nah, I definitely wouldn't. Let me get this comment in, then we're gonna wrap up. Alicia Dove Jones from all the way downstairs says, indeed, Alexis is also giving us some time to think. I've been thinking like crazy. Like, y'all, like just a side note, that this background, the logo, y'all been seeing all kind of stuff change during this quarantine. My logo changed. Everything about my branding has changed because I've had time to think about growing and trying to come out of this different than I came in. And that takes time for you. That just means you spend time reflecting on your goals and your purpose. And you may not know what that is, but now you have time to kind of sit down and say, what am I doing? Michelle Ford from Facebook says, yes, and the people that don't sleep due to constant hustle will try to make those not doing the same feel bad for not doing it. I want success, but I want to live to see it. Yeah. There it is. There's a lot of people out here that make people feel bad that they're not as successful as them. And I hate seeing that because there's a lot of people out here that have hope that they can be a certain thing, and they get stifled because they keep getting berated that they're not, the other person, or you don't have what I have. That's one of my pet peeves is people thinking that they're better. That may be a whole nother show. Because I get in my feelings when I see people getting bullied and you ain't nothing and you don't have the money I have. That just burns my soul when I see that, because people are out here legitimately just trying to make it. They want to be successful. Maybe they haven't achieved it and they have hope that they can, and it gets crushed by one person's voice. So, yeah, we're going to let you do some closing thoughts about the topic. And we also want you to let people know how they can find you and your podcast that's coming up soon.
Thank
you. So go ahead, you have the floor.
It was definitely great. Once again, thank you for allowing me to come on this platform here and talk about public success and, what happens behind the scenes. I think all in all, it's just, we have to understand what you can and cannot take. What are your non-negotiables? It's very important to, if you are not okay, voice that and, talk to someone. But you all can definitely find me at Amber Sells Houses on Facebook. On Instagram, I am realtor_AC. If you all want to email me, you can email me at realtor.amber@icloud.com. And on May 26th, I will be launching my first podcast. It's called Black Boss Podcast. Thank you. I'm super excited about it. So what we will actually be discussing is several different topics, and I'm really addressing what it's like being a Black boss in today's society, because we want to bring awareness to what it feels like, having the pressure of being in those higher roles or those executive roles, or being a successful entrepreneur and having to deal with, your colleagues or other people in the industry, or even your family. How do you handle, and like you said, manage all of that? So we will be launching on the 26th. So I hope that you all tune in, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This was fun. I told you it was going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
The information to contact her will also be in the show notes once I upload the podcast. So when you listen to this episode, you'll be able to click on, to get to her Instagram or whatever the other information that she said. We'll compile that and put that in there. I thank you for coming. This was like I was telling her, guys, I was trying to figure out like who my next guests were going to be. And I was like, who do I know? I'm running out of friends to invite. But through the community of Facebook groups, like one thing people have to understand that's listening, podcasters support each other like crazy. Like I never knew how tight the podcasting community is and how people are like, hey, I need a guest. Hey, I need I want you to be on my show. Hey, I'm going to listen to you and critique and let you. It's insane. And I love it. And that's how we met. And it just builds exponentially. You build connections as like we're at home quarantine, but we're still networking. That's the beauty of this. So
let's do this. I'm excited.
Yeah. And so tell people one more time what the name of your podcast is.
Yeah, absolutely. It is Black Boss Podcast.
Okay, gotcha. So like I said, we're going to put that information in the show notes, and I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you, and I thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. So we are going to go back. Myself, I didn't put her. Hold on, guys. There we go. So that was good, right? We are going to close out. I'm glad you guys were able to come. Let me make sure we're off the podcast part. So I'm just speaking freely here. Let me bring this down. And I got you, Lawan. You in the pocket. I just needed to fit you in. Hopefully sometime this month during Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm working on that. But I got you. I didn't forget about you. Thanks, Kevin, for coming, brother. We gonna do hopefully part 2 of the mental health show with the guys next week. Yeah, so we just gonna keep it rolling. Go to Relationship Gumbo on any podcasting platform, and it's up there. Go to Relationship. Let me put the website up. Relationshipgumbo.net is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Just go there. It's all kind of goodies there. We about to start adding some new stuff, new shows, life coaching. We have apparel there. The live show, the audio podcast, and it's just more to come. I'm excited about 2020, COVID or not, we getting it in, and I implore you guys to do the same. Figure it out and keep pushing no matter what. If you're working, if you're not working, try to figure out something for you to grow, become better than you were before we came into this thing. Because these states are trying to open up early and trying to do whatever. Stay safe. Keep your wits about you. Just because they say open don't mean you got to go run somewhere and go catch something. So that's just my PSA for the day. Y'all have a good night. And I want you guys to, just support each other. Support me, but support each other too. We're going to support each other. So I got some folks to talk to now. People want to be on the show and all. We about to get it in. I'm not opposed to having meaningful conversations about different things. So we're going to get it in. So until then, we will see you next week, same time, same place.
Okay, everybody wants good love, that's true, I know. Derrick Jones about to break it down with the Relationship Gumbo. Welcome to the podcast. Ain't no doubt we all need this, cause better relationships need better ingredients, so if you want better relations, it's about communication, finding love, staying together. We all wanna make it better, yeah. Derrick Jones, the host, your relationship coach. Thank you all for tuning in. Relationship Gumbo,